All right, welcome to Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. We've done a little bit more moving around. This one almost looks like a virtual background, but it is not. All right, so today we are going to start with state styles. State styles is, what is it, number which? All right, so let's do a little bit of a review. All right, so we have the endeavor elements, right? So like I'm always talking about these endeavor elements. Down here we have this thing we call shape potential. And then up here we have form agendas. And then finally we have create effects. So then I told you, so these are the endeavor elements, right? That's your badge number 1. Now from the endeavor elements, you can see there are 9 different themes. All right, so these are called state progress themes. And at the bottom, we have things like resources, motivations, interactions. So this is talking about shaping potential. When we look at our resources and we look at our motivations and we look at our interactions, this is how we start to think about how we can shape potential. Now, as you can see, we also have synergies right here. So that's badge number 3 was synergies. And so obviously synergies, if you go back to some of the previous videos, you remember that synergies was talking about our providers, our peers, and our customers or our clients. And then we also talked about how that changes over time. So obviously when we talk about interactions and the potential that we have to shape interactions, we're going to be looking at our synergies. Now also when we think about so in here we're shaping potential. That means what? We're going to be making some plans. All right, so here we have the assumptions. We make assumptions, we build scenarios, and then we choose the plan. Now obviously when you're making assumptions, you also want to look at some of those synergies. And then when you start to develop some scenarios, you're also going to have to start to plug in those synergies. Like if you don't have any customers, why are you making your product? And obviously you need people to work with. You also need some providers. So your different scenarios, you're going to have to plug in, and also it's going to change over time. All right, so then you go up. So let's erase the synergies. And then even when we talk about creating effects, we also have some synergies, because guess what? Not only when you start to act out, when you start to take action, and when you start to achieve your goals, you're also going to be working with synergies, but it can also be really helpful to think about how you are going to use your synergies when you want to reuse the results from your endeavors. All right, so that was badge number 3. Now, badge number 4, we were talking about inventiveness. Now, obviously, if you're going to be talking about inventiveness, then you're going to be talking about resources. What kind of resources do we have that we can use, and what kind of potential do we have to develop our resources? So, and then obviously we have motivations. That's usually related to some people, but inventiveness, you might also think about how you can change or become more innovative with the way that you are interacting with people. Obviously, when you look at your innovativeness, now remember, we're making assumptions. Remember when we were talking about inventiveness, we went through a bunch of different principles, like integrate, imitate, we talked about avoid, we talked about invent, we talked about all these different principles, which are things that you would be discussing during this research period, all right, during the process of making assumptions. And then obviously, then at the end, once you've completed your project, once your product is in the market, once you are doing your business, then you want to continually think about how, when you start to reuse the results from your successes, how you can be more inventive and look ahead to guess where the industry is going, where your competitors might try to step in front of you. So that was badge number 4. Then finally, badge number 5, as you can see, this was called state assumptions, which is right across from build assumptions. We're talking about the form agendas area. We are making assumptions, and then we went into extreme detail into the process of developing a database and the process of what? Of pointing out the metadata types, pulling out the data, and then checking the usefulness and the accuracy of that data, then deriving insight from that data and being able to estimate the sufficiency of that insight in order to make plans, scenarios, to make scenarios and eventually choose your plan so that you can start to make some action. All right, so that leaves us with what? So that was 5 badges. Let's see, we had 1, we had 2, we had 3, 4, 5. We had 5 badges. Now we're on number 6. Amazing. So we're on number 6, which it looks really weird, right? It's called state styles. Now it's right across from what? It's right across from take action. Now obviously state styles, well maybe not obvious to you, obvious to me, state styles, I mean that could be talking about some motivation, I think, which you will come to understand relatively soon. That could be interactions. That could be the methods you're using to do research. That could be thinking about a variety of styles when it comes to making your plan. But in general, we start with this state styles by talking about your action, because styles is talking about action. All right, now, I made the square a little bit bigger on this one. That's too big. It's so big. All right, so what is going on, right? What does this tell you? All right, so imagine that this is this square right here. So remember state progress. We have the above take action. All right, so you have 9, you have at the bottom 1, 2, 3, shape potential. 1, 2, 3, form agendas. And then take action. The next line after take action is actually recognize outcomes. And in the book Create Crucial Insight by Thomas Buchholz, the color of recognize outcomes on his book is blue. So this square actually represents outcomes. And this in here, inside of the box, represents what you're doing in order to achieve those outcomes. Now, the first principle we're going to talk about is, it's called, well, the first theme. Remember, we're talking about 101 themes to do business. First theme is nil. All right, so I think you probably, if you're like a soccer fan, football fan, you know this word nil, like 3-0, 10-0, 5-0. Nil means 0, nothing. All right, so it means defer doing. So when we talk about state styles here on day 39, oh my goodness, day 39, amazing. We are talking about how successful work was, is, or could be done. How successful work was, is, or could be done. So remember when we were talking about state synergies, we were also talking about how synergies could change over time. Now, obviously, the way that we do work has changed over time. If you think about household duties, there's a big difference between how things were done 100 years ago and how they're done now. If you think about farming, the way things were done 100 years ago, it's much different than how it's done now. If you think about office work, tax collecting, if you talk about even like there's no more paper boys, it's all online. What about the milkman? Now you got to go to the store. Well, wait, no, now you got a curbside pickup. All right, so we're constantly changing the styles of how we do work. Supply chain technology has changed. Just-in-time principles has changed. All of these things are changing. Everything is constantly changing. All right, so how is successful work done? And how can successful work be done in the future? All right, so one way to look at this little square, well, there's 2 easy ways. All right, so one question is like, what is work that we're currently doing, but we should stop? All right, as we work toward these outcomes, we're doing some work and we should stop it. Or we have work which we could ask ourselves, if we want to achieve this outcome, we're currently doing nothing, what could we do? All right, and this is an interesting question. Like, what is it that you need to be doing, but you're currently not doing? Or what are things that you are doing, but you should stop? This is like This is the foundational question of everyone. What are things that I'm doing? I should stop. What are things that I should be doing, but I'm not? I remember when I was a kid, I have this one sister, actually both my sisters and my mom, they constantly had this one sentence. Their favorite thing to say is like, if I would give them this great idea, well, I thought it was great, then they would say, let's not and say we did. Let's not and say we did. It was crazy. It's like a really nice way of saying, what? Are you crazy? No. Let's not and say we did. Basically, it means what? It means let's look deeper at the implications of such a change. Let's look deeper at the implications of a change before attempting the change. When someone suggests, hey, let's make this change to our organization. Currently, we are not doing this thing, but I think we should do it. And instead of saying, let's not and say we did, you could also say, let's look closely at the implications of this change before attempting this change, which means let's take some time. Let's start thinking about it. And there's actually another checklist called State Impact, which we will talk about. I don't know if it's the next one. It could be. But we're going to go deeper into that decision-making process. For right now, we are talking about state styles. All right, so now, why is it important to have a coach, a business coach? All right, so this is my plug for my business. It's because there are things that you should be doing, but you are not. Or there are things that you are doing, but you should stop. And sometimes it can be helpful to talk to someone once a week or twice a week or even once every 2 weeks or even once every month and just say, hey, these are the things that I'm doing and these are the things that I think I should be doing, but I'm not. And then after a couple of days or after a week, I can say, hey, what have you been doing regarding those things which you told me you would like to be doing in order to achieve your goals? Or what are those things that you think you should slow down, maybe do less of, because it's not actually helping you to achieve the outcomes which you desire? All right, so that is our day one of state styles. Now, one interesting thing that you could do if you're a manager, because obviously you can start thinking about the way that you are managing yourself, but you can also think about the way that other people are doing things in your organization. So you can make a list, just write down the names of people in your organization, the first 3 people that come to mind. Write their names down. And now write down 1 or 2 things that you think that person is doing, but they should probably stop doing. And then write down 1 or 2 things, or maybe more, of things that you think they should be doing, but they're currently not. All right, even just asking those 2 questions will provide you some clarity. And I believe that over the next couple of days, as we look at the other styles, you will start to develop more and more clarity about how work could be done, how work is done. And then you can start thinking about the steps that need to be done in order to make the change. Thank you for tuning into Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates.